Welcome to ASI Insider. I'm Susan Sutton, editor of Adhesives and Sealants Industry. I'm speaking today with Cory Keller of Avery, Dennison. Cory wrote an article in our January issue focused on adhesives for labels in medical and pharmaceutical applications. Cory, hi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Susan. Thank you for having me, and hello, everybody. Looking forward to having this conversation this morning with you.
Absolutely. So patient health and safety is obviously the primary concern in any medical application. What are some of the regulatory issues involved with labeling in this sector?
It's a great question, Susan. And as you know, you might expect, the FDA is the main federal agency that regulates all things related to drugs and biologics, medical devices. So that's who we pay close attention to and who we try to support for the drug companies and medical device companies who are launching new products. So what we do in that regard is we maintain what's called a drug master file. And that's where it's kind of relevant to the adhesive or the label stock material, because what's interesting about the FDA process, and when pharmaceutical companies, for example, bring a new drug to market, they need to get a pre-market approval through the FDA to do that. And it's not just the actual drug itself that has to be proven to be safe and effective, but also the packaging that drug is going to be put into also has to be shown to be safe and effective and not change the efficacy of the drug itself. So this drug master file that we maintain with the FDA includes all the formulation information on all the relevant adhesives that might be suitable to use in a pharmaceutical or medical type application. And what that allows a pharma company to do is gain access to that drug master file as part of that submission process to FDA. So what we do and the value that we try to provide is maintain this file, and again, give access to that formulation information and a breadth of independent test data for things such as oral toxicity, eye and skin irritation, hemolytic testing, adhesive migration testing, lots of data that the FDA can use to hopefully provide their stamp of approval that this entire package, the drug itself and the packaging as well, is approved and safe to be brought to market.
When determining the best adhesive to use for a label, for a medical or pharmaceutical label, how important is the surface that the label will be applied to?
Well, that's key. And as we'll probably get to through this conversation, it's really kind of bringing all of these different factors together. But that is an important, usually first question that we would want to ask is, what is this being applied to? And just for purposes, maybe some show and tell here, just to give you some common examples. I mean, as you might expect, and as a consumer, you may be very familiar with, an HDPE bottle like this for a 1-a-day vitamin, or pain relieving medications, or even cold and cough medicine, something like this. But there are some pretty common substrates or packaging types. Again, the first one being just sort of an HDPE bottle. But the devil's really in the details, and not every HDPE bottle or coated paperboard is the same. And it's really you got to become a label geek, and in a sense, and really ask the secondary and third questions around, okay, it's an HDPE bottle, but is it fresh blown versus having been manufactured weeks ago? Does it have flame treatment to remove any of the potential mold release agents? I mean, all of these factors could impact the adhesive selection for a given application. Similarly, for like this coated board package, not all coated board materials are the same. A lot of the varnishes are different. If it's a water-based varnish versus a UV varnish, it could change the amount of dwell time that an adhesive might need to reach its full strength, so to speak. And then again, in an application like this, you might have a closure label on the side here to show maybe tamper evidence. And so you'd really want that adhesive to be strong enough that if it were to be removed, it would actually show fiber tear, or even start to kind of damage this box, so that there was a kind of an overt indication that had been attempted to be opened, as an example. So those are just a couple of examples of some of the implications and why it's important to not just know that it's an HDPE bottle, or it's a coated board, or it's a plastic syringe, but what type of plastic, and even the size of it too is an important factor. I'm holding up this relatively small syringe here. Some of these syringes can go down to a diameter of maybe only about 1/4 of an inch. So not only is the surface itself important, but the size and the shape of it is important too, because when you try to put a label around a small diameter kind of tube shape like this, there's a potential that label could kind of wing or flag, as we call it, and you want to make sure you've got a very aggressive adhesive that'll keep that label from popping off on the vial.
You write in your article that temperature is also a major consideration. Can you walk us through some of those details?
Yeah, temperature is certainly another key factor when trying to select the right adhesive. Two important characteristics of an adhesive that come into play are the minimum application temperature of an adhesive. That's number one. And then secondly, what's the service temperature range for an adhesive? So let me just quickly break those down. First, the minimum application temperature, as you may expect based on that term, is the temperature at which the lowest temperature at which it can be recommended to be applied to a substrate and actually keep the adhesive performance that it's designed for. Many general purpose adhesives have a minimum application temperature that's room temperature or ambient type conditions, maybe down to 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's an important first criteria. You want to make sure you understand what's the temperature in the environment and the temperature of the substrate that this label is first going to be applied to. And it's a pressure sensitive adhesive for a reason. So it requires pressure, and it also requires time for that ultimate adhesion to build. So typically an adhesive is going to take 24 to 48 hours to build to its ultimate adhesion. And so you want to keep that in mind. After that initial period, then the service temperature range comes into play. And that is the low end and high end of what you could expect that adhesive to perform in and maintain its adhesive properties. Many common pressure sensitive adhesives have a pretty wide range of a service temperature range. Many of the adhesives in our pharma portfolio can go down as low as -65 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So you got to bring these two together and really understand the specific application that you're looking to address. And again, understand, is this being labeled in an ambient kind of room temperature environment, or in the case of many biologic drugs, and we're living in the world of COVID and all the vaccines that are being developed, many of those vaccines and drugs need to be produced, stored, and transported in cold chain environments. So you may need to look at more specialized adhesives that are more suited for cold, frozen, in some cases even cryogenic temperatures, ultra low temperatures.
You mentioned the tamper evident property of a label. Can you talk a little bit more about those additional kind of functionalities that the adhesive can help the label deal with for a pharmaceutical medical application?
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of just alluded to the one there, I think, in that last response, but ultra low temperatures is something that, again, right now, with the focus on cold chain and biologic drugs, that's something that is extremely important. And there are specialized adhesives that can perform all the way down to literally cryogenic temperatures of -320 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's one area. We also touched briefly on the example of a syringe that is very small in diameter. So the performance of an adhesive to be able to help in these really tight mandrel, as we call it, applications is another area. Tamper evidence is one as well. So like in the example I mentioned before, an adhesive may be able to actually help provide that overt evidence that a product had been tampered with. And then even something like more exotic, an adhesive can be designed, for example, with a photoluminescent property. So it can be used as a more covert way of showing tamper evidence or making sure that a product is actually authentic. And this is a type of adhesive that might have special pigmentation in it, so that under a black light condition, a UV light condition, It may actually show a color, a blue color, or a red color. It's even possible to, in some cases, do a specific pattern to show again that something is actually authentic, because the anti-counterfeit drug market is a huge market, and something that many large pharmaceutical companies consider to be the biggest threat to their brand.
Wow. Okay, great. Well, Cory, thanks again for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
Susan, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed our time.
And thanks to our viewers as well. To learn more, be sure to read Cory's article on adhesivesmag.com. It's entitled Selecting Adhesives for Pharmaceutical and Medical Labels, or visit Avery Dennison online at label.averydennison.com/pharma.